Good morning, and welcome to Motivation, Meditation, and Coffee with Kat. I, of course, am your humble host, Kat. I'm really struggling this morning. I am really having I don't want to say I'm having a hard time getting motivated. I'm having a hard time waking up. I thought I slept well last night, but then I started thinking about it, and it was probably around 2:45 or so that I woke up, and I was freezing cold. So I cocooned myself in my weighted blanket. I buried myself in all of my pillows and everything, and then like 10 minutes later, Finnegan jumped up on the bed and started yelling at me because she wanted attention, and I realized that I was a pile of sweat. So maybe I'm coming down with something. Maybe maybe I got some sickness. I think this is just me burning the candle at both ends, because I don't know about you guys, but I am still having a hard time with daylight savings time. I will not be paying attention to the clock because I am not a clock watcher. My biological clock usually was pretty on par, and I would be, playing video games or doing paperwork or working on my book, or I would be working. I would be, head down, and next thing I know, the alarm's going off at 5:30 for Pixel's insulin, and I'm like, how is it 5:30 already? I'm not hungry. My food alarm hasn't gone off because I don't eat after 6 p.m. Just for my own digestive issues, and my body's like, it's not 5:30 yet. What is happening? What's going on right now? I am on a routine where I go to bed at 9 o'clock at night. Well, I'm not going to bed until like 10:30 or 11, because that's when my body's like, okay, it's time to start winding down, and it's already 20 after 10. Like, I am really struggling the last 2 weeks, and I was kind of hoping that the weekend would reset it, but it didn't, obviously. But the whole reason why I am sharing all this with you is to go back to our response ability. We have an ability to respond. We have an ability to take the information that has been given to us, and we know from the communication model that our brain will generalize, distort, and only take bits of what we feel is important, and feed that into our conscious. And so when I was having this conversation about not being able to function, I was feeling like I was having a hard time functioning. I always felt like I was 2 hours behind. The person I was speaking to, their response was, well, that's because you're not eating properly. What? That has nothing to do with what I just said. Their responsibility, their response, yes, they generalized, distorted, and heard what they wanted to hear. Good morning, Taco Cat. How are you today? Their response was what they heard. They didn't. That's good. You guys are getting up and ready for your second day back to school, I'm assuming. their responsibility took the immediate response of, I need to respond. And that is kind of what I want to talk about today. Our responsibility based on listening to hear, opposed to listening to respond. Not everything that people say requires, deserves, or is intended for a response. You don't need to respond to everything that you hear or see or are told. Sometimes people just like to hear the sound of their own voice. And you can say, yep. Another example is I heard a statement yesterday that keyboard and mouse gaming, the point and click, top-down isometric, Diablo 2, Diablo 1, the games that we grew up with, those are not immersive games because you're suggesting where your character goes. Opposed to controller play, where you're telling your avatar where to go, how to get there in real time. You are actually moving said character with the 2 joysticks. You're telling them instantly what to do, and so therefore you can find yourself in greater immersion because you are now projecting yourself into that avatar. It's like a third-person VR, whereas point and click is suggestive. You're just suggesting to your character where it needs to go. You're suggesting to your avatar, I want you to go over here whenever you feel up to it, and then the character will carry on and go over to that. And so I said, that is a really interesting way of seeing things. To which the person I was talking to instantly replied, well, not everybody can be as elite as you are. That has nothing to do with anything I just said. And so I questioned. I was like, what are you talking about? And so they looked at me and they're like, what? Yeah, what? What does that have to do with anything I just said? To which they then caught themselves and realized they didn't hear anything I just said. What they heard was, that's interesting. Keyboard and mouse is less efficient than controller. That's what they heard. That's not even close to what I said. Now, I understand that this is coming off as me being a little salty. That's not the point. The point that I'm trying to make is we need to start listening to hear and not listening to respond. We need to listen, and we understand that our unconscious generalizes and distorts. But we need to take a minute, and we just need to listen to the words that were said and think about the context. Think about the tone. Think about the delivery. Does this statement require a response? Or are we just responding because that's our knee-jerk reaction? So many times, arguments are begun because people will respond to something the wrong way because they weren't thinking, they weren't listening to hear, and they say something, and the other person takes offense because they also didn't hear, they didn't listen, and thus begins the argument where in the beginning neither party was actually listening. The reason I'm bringing this up today is also because I'm working with somebody that has a pet project. I'm working with somebody that has a goal in mind, and they are trying desperately to get traction on. And unfortunately, this project is not something that you can just take a leap from the lion's head and do solo. And a lot of the roadblocks that they are coming across is coming against a response ability. And it's frustrating me a little bit because both sides of the coin are not listening to hear. They're listening to respond. And I think that's where a lot of our misinformation, a lot of our miscommunication is coming from today. And when I was thinking about this morning, and I was scrolling through my socials blindly, because that's what I do while I'm having my first cup of coffee. I just blindly scroll, and I'll read the Twitter feeds that come up, I'll read the Facebook feeds that come through, and 95% of everything that I saw was negative, and the few things that I did click on to read more information, the responses had absolutely nothing to do with what was being said, which then caused a cascade effect in myself, because here I am getting angry at things that have absolutely no bearing on me. But my brain generalized, distorted, and said these people are just responding to nothing. They're responding to hear themselves speak. They are responding to the misinformation. And I was doing the exact same thing. I don't know what they were responding to. All I saw was their sentence without context. Sentence without context. That's what I was responding to. Did I respond to it IRL? Did I actually put a response in the chat, or did I tweet a reply? No. I was responding my head. And that's where listening, hearing to listen, or listen to hear, we will sometimes say, here's the answer to the question. That's not what I asked. Another example, someone said that they were, last week, I was talking to someone who said that they were offended by what people were talking about. And I said, without context, tell me what offended you. And they proceeded to tell me the context, not what offended them. And I replied with, that's not what I asked. To which they again got their back up. They then got defensive and said, well, how can you understand what this and that is without context? How can you know what I'm talking about if you don't have the context? I don't want to know what you're talking about. I want to know why you were offended. And I specifically asked, without context, why are you offended? But they didn't read, they didn't hear, they didn't listen, they responded. And that is where we find ourselves a lot of the time, because our unconscious mind is 90% of everything we do, think, feel, hear, say. 90% of everything is unconscious. Only 10% is conscious. We need to start bringing awareness to what's being said and not necessarily what we're hearing. We need to start hearing to listen and not hearing to respond. Maybe that means asking more questions. Maybe when somebody comes to you and says, insert statement here, and you say it back in your head for a second, you think about it, and you say, okay, maybe you need to ask for more information, or maybe that's all that the person wanted to say was, you know what, here's my opinion on something, because they just needed to voice their opinion. Okay. For example, I'll use examples. I don't understand why people keep scrolling through Twitter when all of it is bad news. Okay? Here's my options. Did they ask a question? No, it ended with a period. It was a statement. I don't understand why people keep scrolling through Twitter when it's all bad news. Okay? Statement. Did they ask for my opinion? No. Did they ask a question? No. Did they outwardly state a problem? Yes, they have a problem. Maybe it's not their problem, they just said they don't understand. Okay. Nowhere in that statement do they ask for a response. Nowhere in that statement did they ask for my opinion. Nowhere in that statement did they say, what do you think? How do you think? What can we do differently? Nowhere. They stated their opinion, and so my responsibility is to acknowledge them. Okay. Acknowledge that I heard what they said. Acknowledge that, yeah. And if they want to start a conversation on it, this is their opportunity. If they want my opinion, this is their opportunity. If they want to continue the conversation further, this is their opportunity. Or I can say, well, people often scroll through Twitter to look at the news and stay caught up with current events. I could defend Twitter scrolling. Maybe I'm taking offense because I am currently scrolling through Twitter and I feel the need to defend myself, even though they didn't accuse me of anything. Having the responsibility to just acknowledge, okay, shrug, yep, that could prevent an argument. It can also open a new dialogue. And this layers onto what I was speaking to previously. Video game mechanics. When you're playing video games and there's dialogue, do you skip all the way to the end because you don't care about the dialogue, you just want to play the game? Or do you read the dialogue and then say, well, that's fucking stupid, and then choose the idea that if it's a multiple choice answer, choose the, you know what, I'm going to be evil today, or you know what, I'm going to be good today, or you just, yep, okay, whatever, skip, mash that button just so you can get back to the gameplay. What's your response? What I have noticed is those people that will read the dialogue, will pay attention to the dialogue, will often find hiccups in the dialogue, will often find different responses at different times versus those people who skip to the very end and then say, well, how come this happened? Why isn't this working? Oh, it's because I didn't read the dialogue. Right. They clearly say in the middle of the dialogue, this is what you need to do. Often, those same people are the ones that listen to respond. Those people who listen to respond, more often than not, are the same ones who skip through the dialogue. Which is interesting. So, my challenge, layered on from previous days, is to bring awareness. I know we've done this exercise before, I know we've had this conversation before, but my challenge for you today is to bring awareness to a response. And yes, I know I keep using the word response ability because that's what this is. I'm not using the responsibility word of, this is what you're being held accountable for. No, this is your response ability. You have the choice of how you respond to every situation. And so my challenge for you today is, how do you respond? When someone speaks to you, do you instantly tell them your opinion? When someone says a statement, do you instantly double down and get defensive? Do you prove them wrong? Do you give them your opinion without being asked? Or do you just acknowledge it and let them drive the narrative? What's your response? A perfect example is this conversation right now. This is very one-sided. I can tell you anything I want. And all you can do really is just stop watching. All you can really do is unfollow. Your responsibility is pretty limited. Or you can sit there and you can be offended that I've questioned how you respond to different things. You can let it stew. You can sit and harumph in your chair and say, stupid cat, what do you mean all I do is respond? No, that's not how I work. Pretty sure you just did. Or you can think about it and say, oh shit, you're right. That is what I do. How many people have I locked by just responding when I didn't need to? How many people have walked away from conversations that I've had because my responsibility is to respond instead of listening, instead of asking more questions? How many times have somebody come up to you just to say something and you've shut them down because your instant response is, here's my opinion, here's what you need to do, even though they didn't ask it? So that's my challenge for you today. Every time you interact with somebody today, how are you responding? Are you acknowledging? Are you responding appropriately, or are you responding just to respond? Think about that for a second. And the follow-up to that is, I am responding to respond. I am telling them what to do, how to do it, even though they didn't ask me. I had a really bad day at work because it was busy as fuck and I didn't have enough staff. Well, what I would do is I would tell my manager this, that, and the other. That's not what I said at all. That has absolutely nothing to do with anything. I'm telling you that I had a bad day. I didn't ask you how to fix it. That tells me that you're not listening. It's these simple responses that can often cause the biggest wounds. So think about that. Think about that as we move into some extended breath work. I need some extra breath work this morning. I don't know why, but I'm still feeling off. And so I am going to cut the meditation short, but we are going to do a full cycle of the 4-4 breathing. It's 12 cycles, 4-4 breathing, 10 cycles of 6-6, and 4 cycles of 8-8. And we're going to do that as a full cycle. And if there's time at the end, maybe we'll do a little bit of meditation, but I think reflective breathing is what I need to do this morning to focus my response ability and just allow ourselves the balance and the grounding of what breath can do. And so I invite you to get comfortable. I've been perched on my chair apparently for the last few minutes, which is interesting. I don't normally perch when I do this, so obviously you can see that things are a little weird. I might have to do my own work today, who knows? But I invite you to get comfortable and somewhere that you can sit quietly. You can sit, there we go, somewhere that you can sit comfortably. You can adjust any jewelry or any clothing that you feel might get tight or distracted as we are doing this breath work. And I'm wondering if I put a clock on here, if I put a countdown on here for maybe if I do this, let's see, I'm trying to make this easy for us so that we can take a look at the timer and be able to see when, to get that proper metronome thought. And if we lose our thoughts, if our thoughts take us away, we can always come back to the breath. So let's see Perfect. Let's use that. So, we'll reset this, and I'll make it like 30 minutes so we can just use... There we go. So, the point is to just use this as a metronome, because I am not necessarily going to be walking through. What I will be doing is I will be counting the cycles. I will be counting the cycles of 4-4 breath, 6-4 breath, nope, 4-4, 6-6, 8-8, and then back to 6-6 and 4-4. So, with all of this, I invite you now to get comfortable, grab some coffee, amazing. And as we start, just bring your attention to your breath right now. Bring your attention to the spontaneous breath, your natural breath rhythm. Bring awareness to the parts of your body that move. As you inhale, as you exhale, feel the parts of the body that move. We're going to begin with breathing in for 4, hold, out, in, hold, out, hold, in, hold, out, hold, in, hold, out, hold. Two more cycles, we're going to increase to 6. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out. In. Hold. Out. Hold. Good. And now, if you are comfortable in 2 more cycles, increase to 8 breathing. If you are not comfortable, if you need to reset yourself, that's fine. Use the timer on the screen to reset yourself. In, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hold. 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Out. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hold. In 2 more cycles, we're going to go back to 6-6 breath. 6. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In. Hold. Out. Hold. Good. In 2 more cycles, we're going to return to 4-4 breathing. And this is where I will leave you for the day. In 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Out. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. In. Hold. Out. Hold. Amazing. Thank you again for joining me this morning for motivation, meditation, and coffee with Kat. And thank you for joining me in this extended breath work. I appreciate it. I really needed that to center myself, and I feel much better. I hope that this has also helped you as well. And I hope that maybe you can join me tomorrow morning for Wednesday Wisdom at the same time, 7 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And always remember that in Dungeons & Dragons, a player uses the help action. The other player gets the roll with advantage. So let me use the help action to help you live with advantage. I will let the chill music roll for a few more moments, and feel free to use the clock to allow yourself to get back on track for 4-4, 6-6, or 8-8 breath. I will let it run for about another 10 minutes or so, just to give you that opportunity to really ground yourself in comfortable silence.